It's gonna work. Hey, it's raining in LA. I love it when it rains in LA. It smells like tires. Oh yeah, it's working and raining in LA. Welcome to the Art of Rock. It's Saturday morning and it's raining in LA. Oh my God, fuck, why God away. Jesus Christ. Hi, that was a good start, wasn't it? Welcome to the Art of Rock. First and foremost, I acknowledge the Tongva people as the traditional landowners of where I am right now. That's LA, which is raining and smells like tires. This is the Art of Rock. Every Saturday morning, we are here helping you make your art. We're also complaining and bitching, looking at reverb and stuff. We talk about production, composition, and overcoming writer's block. And I've realized I've never actually said that, and people are watching this going, "What the fuck is this? All these people bitching and moaning." Well, it's the Art of Rock, god damn it. Every Saturday, man, I am just having a great internet day today. Every Saturday, we're here. On Angelspit's Twitch. Hey, like and subscribe, Angelspit's. You know, I just want to vomit every like and subscribe. Fuck off. And it's also on Angelspit's YouTube. This is made possible with Angelspit's Patreon. Join as a G'day Rob. Join as a free member. Ta-da! Or not. Or give me fucking $3 a month. Or not. It's up to you. Just hang out because I'm trying. We're all trying to like get each other through this. May is kickstarting their new album. Unfortunately, that will not be freely available to Angelspit Patreon members because it's a May thing. It's a bloody good album, and there's a whole bunch of these tracks already on streaming. Go back it. It's a fucking good album, and man, absolutely bought the thing. Why are there vomit emojis? Angelspit's new album is called Red End, and it's a whole bunch of me yelling and smashing things, which is always fun. Go get it or stream it live. Take your pick. The Industrial Incisions playlist is a whole bunch of bands that you need to know about. And those bands need to send me more fucking material and also need to remember to pimp the goddamn thing because the more people who pimp it, the more people are going to learn about it. Communal Working 101. Okay, remember to check out Vulture Culture's Synth Deep Dive on Wednesday nights. Right here. There it is. Like it, subscribe it. Bam. Look, I said that again. Ugh. And get a t-shirt. There. Go buy Vulture Culture's t-shirt. This is Angel Spit's Discord, and we are going to talk about the K2000 video, by the way. Maybe. Angel Spit's Discord. Go get some. We're gonna do non-stop music from the Bleeding Edges MTV TV. Jen, welcome. Eliza, welcome. Rob, welcome. And we're gonna stream there later, and they've also got a Patreon, and it's there. Man, there's so many things I talk about here. If you think everything is broken, here, this might help you fix it. Here's another place where you might help fix the brokenness of what you might think is broken. Go look at those things. They're good. If you think you have an addiction issue with the internet, go do something about it. This is serious, kids. We have to talk about this shit now. Here's probably everybody who will be joining me and us today. Alistair, it's so good to see your face. Get some new goddamn music. Rezi, thank you so much for co-hosting this.
Thank you for having us. Good afternoon.
It's always a pleasure. And Drake's GoFundMe, I believe, is still going because we tragically lost Drake a while back from unexpected cancer, and that was terrible. So that we're going to look after his family. Now, so I want to start. You got a bass line and it sucks. What do you do? And then so ideas for making an okay bass line into something amazing. Go. Yeah, Rizzy, hit me.
Syncopate.
More.
Shorter notes.
Uh-huh.
Contrasting with longer notes.
Uh-huh.
Pay attention to the duration of the bass notes. The onset is important, but where it stops is really important in that frequency. Percussive
Totally
attacks, softer attacks, varied. We're talking synthesizers mostly here, probably. Put that on your velocity. I'm going to stop with those. Those are some like go-tos for me.
Okay, there's a lot there, and I really appreciate it. And we're going to pin on that and shoot over to Mr. Bratt.
Morning. Baseline sucks, don't like it. What I start typically doing at that point is playing with like gross beat, which is a VST, what it does is it allows me to chop things up in time in new and creative ways. It's literally it allows me to take a sound that maybe I'm not super happy with, and then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll split it left ear and right ear, and I'll apply two different beats to left ear and right ear. So that way it gives it a sense of motion as well. And a lot of times that helps me. At least in those early parts where you're dealing with a bass track or something just by itself, and yeah, you want to spice it up so that it makes other things or causes inspiration. That's a go-to for me.
Thank you very much. There's some fantastic conversation going on in the chat, and I'm reading this. Hey, Austin, what do you think?
When I get a bass line that sucks, sometimes I'll trash it. But besides trashing it, one thing that I like to do is try to oversample it and maybe even create a different song out of that, trashy bass line. I'm a sample guy, so you can do a lot of things with samples and then just come up with a new song, and then that's what's happened with me on many occasions.
Thank you. I'll do the rounds and then I'll come back to me. Rezi, can I throw to Alex first? Alex, what are your thoughts?
The thing I usually do if my bass line doesn't work is to try to approach it like a drum part, like instead of individual drum voices, each note is like a drum voice, and then you figure out a beat, and that's how I usually do it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Rezi, what are your thoughts?
I've got three more angles on it. The first is start taking out other elements so you know which one you're comparing it to. Listen to just the bass line and the vocal maybe, so that you can get ideas from how those are intertwining, both pitch-wise and rhythmic-wise, or take out all of the counter melodies and just focus on your pads, chords, and the bass line, or just the drums and the bass, and or just the kick and the bass, for fuck's sake. I mean, mileage out of that. The other thing is I write a lot of the bass lines on electric bass and play them and record them on that instrument. And going up the neck melodically, I don't know, people might feel as though that's a way guitarist thing to do with the bass, but obviously we've got some precedents in the genre where playing either a drone note and a melody on the bass or a bass six is the classics, whether it's Peter Hook or Robert Smith, doing that kind of thing. Then also once you've done that, like bring it back down a little bit, but breaking it up in octaves and having a alternate, like a destination in the coda. Like by the time you've gotten to the end of the song, you're playing like some sort of alternate octave part that's got a melodic flourish that wasn't in the rest of the song. That's kind of a go-to. And then maybe that was only two things.
Okay, thank you. This is good. Ivan.
If you're just trying to play chord roots, there's a pretty good chance that your bass line's going to come out a bit on the boring side. That is again where like the lessons learned from Peter Hook are important. Bootsy Collins might be able to teach us a few things as well. I mean, like the bass
Baby. Baby.
needs to do
Baby.
so many things other than just playing chord roots over and over again. Because like that, like it just gets boring. But as soon as you start to, actually like mess with tempo and really like play the song within the song, like a difference can be made there.
This is really fascinating, and I thank y'all's. Rezi, I'm gonna wind back to you. I wanna Phoenix, hit me.
So what I do is I take little things like from what Alex said and what Rusty said, and either I single out the bass line, listen to it, try to find something that works more with what I'm trying to compose, or I throw everything all out and start a new song, save that for a different song because I'm like, oh wait, this works with, X, Y, and Z, so on and so forth, you know. And I have many of those songs that are actually uncompleted, so I gotta work on those. But I mean, yeah, I try to figure out what sounds just right, and that's how I do it, you know.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Resi, hit me.
I thought of two other things. One, not just syncopation, but actual groove. I heard Carol Kay, famous of the Wrecking Crew and a million bass lines on a million Motown and later songs that you know and love. She said something to the effect of, once it's just you and the metronome, you have to make it sound like the metronome is grooving, which, if you get your head around what she's saying there, is pretty poetic and functional at the same time, because the metronome's not really moving. It's your responsibility, if you're doing this in real time or with a sequencer, to make it feel with your micro motions and the durations of your notes that there's something magical going on with that locked groove that isn't going on. So you're creating an illusion. And the other thing that bass has, especially 50 years after she was saying this, the amount of bass that we can put into recordings makes that instrument have almost more responsibility for changing the quality of chords than the chords themselves. Because if you move the bottom, the root out of something consonant to something dissonant and something that really clashes for a minute and then bring it back, that tension and release in the bass register has a really unique and profound, like, strong effect on what the meaning of that particular phrase is in that moment of the music.
Yes. Brett, guide me to the promised land.
I think you got the wrong demon there. Uh, Nonetheless, a couple things came up that I also thought were good ideas, and I use them as well. One of them was in chat there. Switching to another patch sometimes helps. But one of the things that Alex was also talking about, is, or I believe it was Alex, but was using it kind of like a drum, or treating it like drums. And to that point, what I do a lot of times is very, very closely marry the bass line to the drum track. For me, it's easier a lot of times to start with the drums and let that be the drone, if you will. But then what I can do in the DAW is literally see where the drums are, kind of set them as like an onion skin of sorts, and then place the bass notes, either higher and lower by octave, or actually set them offset to what the drums are doing. And a lot of times you can get neat variations that way as well.
Hi. Okay, that's nice. Alex, what are your thoughts?
There was some famous dance track in the 90s, I think, that had I think the bass part was just the drum, just the MIDI from the
Ba ba
drum.
ba ba.
Yeah, probably. I think it was a Beverly Hills Cop, but I'm not sure. Or maybe it was even the other way around. The drum part was the bass line. I don't know, but something like that. I remember.
Well, thanks, Alex. And damn, it's just in my head again. Oh, and today everyone is going not again. Um, okay, so wow, this is great. Once again, there's so many different ways to look at how to do this. This is fantastic. So there's the intellectual way of looking at this, which we often do because you're sitting looking at a computer, which is like, wow, meh, meh, meh. What is my kick drum doing? What is my vocals doing? And is there too much that's very good, Diana, thank you. Is there too much going on? Is there too much going on? I was in a club the other night, and I was listening to what I will call wubba, but that's not like to be confused with wub. It was wubba. And I was listening to the sub trying to process all the information that was coming out in the subs. And you could see that whenever a song was done well and everybody was dancing, the subs just going boom, 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 or whatever the kick drum is. But when it's not, and it was a real reminder to me, like, oh shit, I'm so guilty of this, of that bass region. If the kick is not dominant in the sub, we've got a problem. Sure, bass can be in the sub, obviously, but there's not too much talking. And Rezi brought up the idea that it's really important where the note stops. Because if you want to set up a beat beautifully, you stop it in a certain place, leave a break, and it comes back in. It's this interplay. So you can look at everything and you can go, what's the bass doing? What's the vocals doing? Da 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 da. Rule of thumb, I found whatever your chorus vocal is, if the bass is following that, so it's sitting with the vocals like pumping away together, and then the verse is a simplified version of that. Just don't let it get too complicated, and then it might suck a bit. It might be like 3 notes. Do you notice how I do this? I don't do that. I do this. Because that's something I need to bring up. You might, on the 3rd note, you might go up a minor 3rd, because it always works, which is in C going to the E flat. Or you might go down to the flat 7, which is in C, is to the B flat. Or you might go up to the flat 7. So you're going to go C up to the B flat. Pa-da. Now, I think with Basslines, I've mentioned this before, forgive me for doubling up. It's very important to listen to Bootsy and Bernie Worrell. So these are the cats who powered James Brown and P-Funk and many other things. Is that if you want to learn bass, the question is, what would Bootsy do? And Bootsy is the king of making a metronome rock. Like making that thing he can put the funk into a metronome. Like Bootsy's insane. And it's really fascinating to watch how much they don't play. A thing about funk as well is it's about hitting the 1. So it's going pow on the 1, and then it might hang back and get all synchronized and funky. Which brings me to a really important thing. I think air bass is really important. And I'm not I'm not talking about like air bass, being able to play air bass. I actually won one of the rounds of air bass, America's Got Air Bass, a few years ago as air bass. I was also an air accordion player. We've mentioned that, haven't we? But yeah, my it's not as good as my air accordion. I'm wicked on air accordion, but on air bass, I'm great. And I think it's very important when you're writing a bass line. I am being serious right now, to get up, dance around your space, playing air bass. It's really important. I'm serious. I'm so serious. You guys are going, no, I'm not doing that. Got to do it. And you jump around and you play air bass, and you might even have a cool pair of sunglasses that you put on so you can get some boots hair going on. So you can play that air bass. And the reason you do this stupidly ridiculous thing, is it's going to make your brain think differently. And when your brain thinks differently, different things happen and different fun things happen, because music is usually an act of fun. Usually it's an act of fun. And sitting there looking like you're doing your accounts isn't always fun. So fuck around, baby. That's what I say. Get up and dance, play that air bass, and listen to more Bootsy Collins. Listen to more P-Funk. Listen to more James Brown.
Yes.
Thank you. Because and this is another interesting thing as well, is that like having that groove that you hammer on is great fun. But and did you notice I just said hammer? That's another bass thing. Yeah, definitely get the sunglasses, specifically the bass player sunglasses. Don't pay anything more than $5 on those bass playing sunglasses, and you can get them from a Halloween shop if they're fucking crazy. Um, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. And it's gone. Oh yeah. Something that the Q would do, which is really interesting, is that so we're going pop, 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 and it might be a two-part thing that's played over and over and over again, and that's fantastic, and I'm so happy about that. But there might come a point sometimes in verse two or in verse three where your bass is going to deviate from that fantastic groove and it's going to follow the vocals. Then it's going to go back to that bass line. Then it's going to follow the vocals a bit. And that's going to start really working and mingling with everything in a really fantastic, playful way because I think it's all about playfulness and cool sunglasses. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to baselines and the importance of the funk? And I shouldn't be, bombastic and go, it's all about the funk, but it is. Um, does anybody else want to add to anything about the funk? Brett.
Paired well with drum hits, you can also accentuate your bass lines. Especially like some of the like more cinematic uh, orchestra hits, kind of that style. Using them sparingly can actually give the illusion that your bass line is doing something that it's not.
That's excellent, and I thank you. Another fun thing to do is to put the bass, like have a hit of that bass a 16th before the snare, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if the bass is going boom, 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 oh, boom, boom. So it comes in a 16th before it. Notice how I didn't do it there because I suck. Um, Using that sort of thing. Also listening to stuff like funky beats, beats, and listening to the kick in those funky beats. And if your kick's in your song's playing a 4, listen to where those funky beats are hitting, and that's where your bass goes. So it might be like gunk, 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 you know? Fuck around and find out. And it's all about dancing around the house, cool sunglasses, air bass. It's all about air bass. Does anybody else want to add anything to the importance of airbase before we move on to the next subject, which is going to be the K2000? Anybody? Anybody? Anybody?
Yeah, air bass is important. Even if you play the regular bass, you should still play the air bass and sunglasses.
Yes. Um, it's all about the sunglasses and airbase. And sometimes you need those star sunglasses like Bootsy. Sometimes you just need aviators.
Rose-colored sunglasses.
Yeah, yeah. These things are important. Um, okay. Swords high, everyone. Oh, I don't know what the hell's going on. Okay, so Wednesday night, Vulture Culture finally did the K2000 review, and it was a great review. It was really interesting. I was watching this and I was going, how the fuck do you review a K2000? Like it I don't know how to review it. Like it would take days. I actually think if you wanted to do it, you'd do one stream per algorithm. He didn't get a chance to actually dive into the synthesis of it just because time, but it was a really good, it was a damn fine attempt. Because it is a behemoth. So based on, I was just thinking, does anybody else want to pitch in about, and we're kind of like subtly plugging Vulture Culture. Does anybody else want to jump in about that very fine display? Brett?
I guess the one thing I would jump in on for the K2000 is really kind of how you can blend synthesis and sampling at the same time, and really just it's a great platform to do sound design on actually. Um, so go sample saws, bang on walls, things like that, record them, throw them in there, and then allow the synthesis engine, blend them over pianos, blend them over strings, things like that. You end up coming up with some really wild stuff. And that was one of the things like I was mentioning just before we went live. This past weekend, for example, I managed to pull out dust off some floppy drives, throw them in the K2000, back them up to the Jazz drive. But at the same time, one of those things I found was a synthesizer that I actually had programmed on the DX7 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I don't even have the patch anymore, but the K2000 can replicate that synth no problem. And part of that is sampling. A lot of that is sampling. Part of that is the synthesis engine behind it. And it ends up making it very versatile to become any other instrument you want, in my opinion.
Yeah, the synthesizer on that machine is just insane. I mean, like the filters, you're gonna go a really long way to find a low pass filter on the K2 on an analog synthesizer that sounds as good as, if not better than the K2000. The K2000 does analog better than most analogs. And that's a hard pill to swallow, but it does, because you can line in their distortion. The overheads of that thing are built to be distorted to run hot. And when you distort the K2000, it doesn't sound fucking awful. It sounds warm. Um, there's an algorithm in there which is the sawtooth and a shaper. So it will basically Helium collide via a shaper, like a shaper, which is a form of kind of like taking the harmonics and fucking the even harmonics or the odd harmonics of a sound, and it will use a sawtooth to somehow miraculously fuck with that. So you can get a sound. Um, you will get a sound that is really normal, and you can turn it into something fucking horrifying or something absolutely massive. Um, and because I know Adapt's drilling over K2000, and Ivan's probably looking at a K2000 right now. Um, the thing about a K2000 is that it's 24 notes, and you can usually have three notes or it's 24 voices, and you can stack up three voices per sound. So if there's three stacked voices, it's only eight. But the massiveness you can achieve from that synth with just one voice, thus 24 note polyphony, is insane. Still insane. And my K2000, the effects chips busted. So I never really hear it with effects. I'm just programming it dry, and it's still so fucking good. And I mentioned that I've got to dig up all of the Angelspit, Nurse Grenade, Crunk House, and Hideous and Perfect Sounds. Yeah, I should upload them. Razzie, what are your thoughts?
Sort of curiosity, since as a non K2K owner slash operator, do you generally use it as a single multi-timbral synth, or do you generally use it more like, I know people that I've known have the K2000 rack use it as a truly multi-timbral, like drum module kind of individual outputs dedicated to different tasks kind of thing, which is more the way that I used my samplers. Um, let's say S950, okay, S950, like kick, bass, snare, hats, that kind of thing, out the individual outs, or more as a synth mixture? What are the differences?
Okay, so the rack's got 8 outputs. A stereo plus 8 different outputs, I think, and the keyboard's only got 4 or 6, but 4. I never really used it like that. Like I may have gone, um, because I do everything. I just record everything down and do it, and sometimes I do take them out, but yeah, it's there's a lot. Actually, Brett, I'm just gonna kill this. Brett, what do you think?
So in terms of technical know-how, Carl, you're gonna stump me all day long on the K2000. The way I, however, use it, I use both of the Kurzweils for their multi-timbral capabilities. In that regard, I end up defining. I stick with old school standards where drums run on MIDI channel 10. That works really well with the K2000. You set it up, hey, your drum channel is MIDI channel 10, and then those patches, if you will, those multi-timbral patches or those polyphonic patches for the drum kits are going to then play on that channel fully. After that, I use a lot of the more 80s sound effect kind of things from the K2000, things that haven't really been ported over much. And then on the PC4 side of that, I use it for the more refined and polished sounds that it can pull out. Between the two, well, the two sound awesome together, first of all. That's more instruments than most people need right there. But I found that the balance between the effects and whatnot that come from the K2000 versus the effects that are on the PC4 play very well together, and that really at that point it becomes how I define each patch and call that patch via MIDI in the DAW.
I'm here. Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. Because the thing about the K2 is that there's so much fucking shit you could easily do an entire sound, a whole song on the K2000, because most synths fall into the problem of everything on this synth has that same synth sound. K2000 does not. That you can go, here's a whole deep dive into nice, beautiful, huge analogs. Here's all of my 90s R&B sound stuff. Here's my horrifying dubstep stuff. Here's all my cyberpunk stuff. And that is something really amazing about the Kurzweil, is that you can very easily create an album with just that synthesizer. Really easily. And there are very fucking few synths that can call that one up. Razi, empty your brain upon me.
That's kind of where you just veered into exactly where I was going to ask, and that's, given that this has been around a long time, probably predates a lot of other synths that we've owned. Did it become the master keyboard, the home keyboard, the one that's like, oh, this is my main go-to place where I start composing or turn on first when I'm getting to a session? Is it more that kind of keyboard rather than I've got an esoteric sound in mind, I'm going to go design it on that? It sounds like it fills both roles, but it also does strike me as a really personal, get to know it deeply keyboard, so that it's your main axe.
Brett, what do you think about that?
All right. So all of my boards I have for different reasons. And most of that comes down to playability. So my PC4 has weighted keys. You can, but it's not as easy to do rapid fire on the PC4 as it is the DX7 or the K2000. Those weighted keys just slow you down. So for me, each board brings, a kind of a niche skill set as I'm designing a song. So I know, for example, that first of all, the way my studio is set up, I can play any board from any other board. So if I need my fingers to be able to do this, it's kind of like, okay, if I have an acoustic guitar and the action is just too far off the fretboard, then it's going to take me that much more effort to actually get the note I want. Versus the Hellraiser, which its action is like, if I'm not careful, I'm going to frack it out. But at the same time, I can rip across the keyboard with minimal effort. You get two completely different sounds, though, from just how you're playing the instrument, regardless of the patch. And you start taking advantage of those things where it applies to some of the older synths like the Casio, where A quick note press changes the cutoff value of a given patch, and all of a sudden you really start being able to manipulate the sound that you're after, regardless of instrument. So summed up, it's about the playability. The K2000 is very quick. If I know I'm going to be jamming in that regard and I need the power of that instrument to do it, then that's where I'm at. If I need it to be more emotional, I guess, and then that's where the weighted keys come in handy, and that's where I can really kind of get down to those softer touches or even hammer it, and it understands the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. When I used to start, like a really excellent place that I was in my composing mind is the K2000 with headphones in it. And I just do everything on a piano. And that's where I'd start. And then before you know it, you start building sounds and creating sounds. I will say the K2000 is a bit of a pain in the ass to program. There's a lot of menu diving, a lot of fucking around, and it wants a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of detail going in, and so therefore you are required to put in a lot of detail. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. Um, and that is one downside of the K2000 is that I try to never use the presets. I am very, very, very guilty of using that's a copy of the analog disc, and the analog disc is fucking nuts. And I actually had to stop using several sounds on that because I always use those fucking sounds. Um, yeah, and then you'd start building sounds and all that sort of fun shit. And so a song would build really organically on the synth. And I will also say, I think possibly the gnarliest sound I've ever created, like really, whoa, fuck, was the K2000. And you could, because I always like a sound that, oh, here it is, sound's doing its thing, and it responds to every fucking MIDI controller, and it's great, and everything can be controlled by MIDI, everything, everything, everything. Um, but I always like the thing that you've got a slider here, and it's going to fuck the sound this way, and then this controller is going to fuck the sound that way. And when you put them together, you're going to go to hell. And that's what I love about it is that you can push it a quite simple sound with a slider can go to extreme crazy noise all the way up, and then when it's down, it's a very nice manageable sound. And I will say the bass on the K2000 Jekyll switch, I've mentioned this before, Jekyll switch, we had this big fucking PA. And we blew the bass out of that PA on several occasions because the K2000 puts out such insanely ridiculous subs. Like, if they are there, the K2000 is going to blister them the fuck out. And another thing about the K2 is you're going to spend a lot of time EQing shit out of it because it's all there. And I will say it does have, if you do cyberpunk or industrial, you've got to have a K2000. It's so and it's so fucking amazing. I have to try to not use it because I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it and it's going to have that sound. And I guess that's another thing is that I need to figure out how do I push my sound palette beyond what I have. And that is a good thing about presets. I hate presets, but a good thing about other people's presets is you are being introduced to another way of working. Plus the K2000 have these things called funds, which are these fundamentals, I think they stand for. And you can say, well, I'm going to get this thing and multiply it by a diode and then a beat sample it to the fucking MIDI clock divided by 4 or whatever. And you can end up like there's that really famous, the Pink Floyd On the Run. They created the entire On the Run on one key of the K2000, and it wasn't a sample, it was synthesized. So they were using the algorithms and all of that shit on a K2000. I can't, if you want to go fucking crazy, it's there. And I'll look one more thing. I don't know of a synthesizer that has a level of the extreme craziness of the modulation matrix and all that shit as a K2000. Like others have emulator 4 tries, nowhere near it. Because you ain't just modulating everything with everything. We are going through not just low pass, high pass, bandwidth, notch, blah blah blah, but we are going through pulse width modulation on fucking what the fuck with the fuck? Um Distortion. No. No, oh my God, no. Resi, it's yours.
As I recall it, the fun, capital Fun, are mathematical functions that you can string between two things that are making a value and a third thing that's like part of the vast engine. And I guess you can do that at audio rates, if I'm not mistaken, so that you'd have wave shaping and creating sounds that way, not just like low frequency oscillators. I don't remember what sounds you get out of that at all, but I'm sure that it's a deep and interesting area for nerdery. The thing that keeps dawning on me about this machine is it is a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but I've always regarded it as, like strong sampler with synth capabilities so that you can put your own waveforms in, but that it sounds like also, and this is minor, but correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, you drop some headphones on it and just listen to it directly. Brett, you're talking about some of the performance and real-time stuff that you can do with it. It sounds also like it's a bit of a workstation of that era where you could do, anything with MIDI channel 10 having drum kits by default. I assume that's a factory patch of kick, snare, hats, toms. That sounds like you could write some songs on this thing, probably 24 voices, MIDI channel 10 drum kit, and a pair of headphones. And you've got, does it have a sequencer or writing room type of page in there somewhere?
Yes, it does. Brett, the floor is yours, Brett.
I was literally going to say yes, it does, and but you can also use that sequencer as part of your patches, both on the PC4 and the K2K. So if you want your note to do like the Pink Floyd example there, you can actually sequence that, and then it becomes part of the of a key press. And I mean that by so I use VSTs for a lot, or I did use VSTs for a lot of those kinds of effects where you need a sense to just kind of go all over the damn place. It'll do it. It will do it. It'll do it straight out of the box, and it becomes more about the hardware that they put in it as to what kind of sound, but you'll get out of it, and that's where like I talk about the differences between the two. The K2K has a much better distortion module than the PC4. The PC4 will absolutely obliterate a sound, but it won't sound as good, in my opinion.
And yeah, this is interesting. Firstly, I will say I never use the sequencer, but I've always gone, man, I want to use that sequencer. Never have. And it's a really good sequencer too. Like the K2000 was designed to be, you can create absolutely everything on this. You don't need a PC because it was the early 90s and not really many people had PCs. This is what's interesting is that, like, okay, sure, a lot of people are going, I want to get a K2000. You could also consider the 2600. Basically, it's the same machine. There's a few things that are better about it, but it's double the polyphony, so it's 48-note polyphony. And if you're going to get one, they're really, I'm seeing them for $500 now, even the massive, and the keyboards feel beautiful. When you get into the 2600, things started getting nice. And the 2700 is now, I think, very nice. But now they've released, is it the 2601 or something? Where they've tried to go back to the dirt of what was in the K2000. I think that's like the Kurzweil. They then released a really amazing virtual analog thing, a part of the synthesis, which was the most virtual of all virtual analogs. Then they released the a DX7 operator system in there as well, which was as good as the DX7s. I heard a rumor, the 2061. Thank you. I heard a rumor that they were working on, it's got an implement in it for you to have an AI generated sound thing where you say, I want a whole set that sounds like Blade Runner. And they did a joke about this. It was funny. I think it was last year someone did a troll about it. Like, oh, happy fucking April Fool's Day. And it's like, but wait a minute, Ray Kurzweil's already working on that. Like where you can just say, I want to sound like band X, and it'll go, here you go. Here's 100 sounds. And thank you, Brett. Yes, that's the 2601. But if you can't, and look, also, kids, remember, this thing is now 30 plus years old, and mine is showing no signs of fucking giving up. I should probably get it a new screen, but it's just fine, knock on wood, besides the fact that the effects weren't working when I got it. And the effects are fine. They're like crappy, awful effects, but they're actually really nice. And there was one on Facebook, fucking market for $200. And then you're always seeing for 250, anywhere between $200 and $300. And I think if you get a K2000 for under $1,000, you've got your money worth because you will have that synthesizer for the rest of your fucking life. They're so good. They're so fucking good. And if, look, any synth that can do Jupiter 8 better than the Jupiter 8, and it kills me to say that, but the K2000 does Jupiter 8 better than the Jupiter 8. I own a Jupiter 8 and I A/B'd them. They weren't the same. Same with the Pro 5. Like there were things about the Pro 5 that you just can't emulate, and same with the Jupiter 8. But dude, they're so fucking good, man. It's got the best fucking notch filter I've ever fucking heard. The closest thing to it is the fucking Collins filter, the Collins 1047 ARP 2600 analog filter. It's so good. I'm gonna stop talking about this because I'm really not helping anyone right now with gas. So, and everybody's on reverb. Everybody is on fucking reverb. You all suck so much. What are you looking at, Resi?
Just K2000s on reverb.
Yeah. And this is another fascinating thing is that there's not many places. That guy's got cool Crocs. There's not many, but we've all taken photos like that. There's not many places, YouTube videos that actually go into the K2000, smashing a hole through a fucking black hole or through a concrete wall. The sound is so absolutely fucking, like I tried to do that on mine, but I didn't really. I said it can absolutely obliterate shit. Yes, it can, but it's, like I said, you could do a lot. You could do easily a 2-hour stream focusing on one of the algorithms on that synth, and there's 32 algorithms on it. It's ridiculous. Okay. No one's talking in the chats anymore because everybody's currently on reverb looking to buy a K2000. I think between our secret thing is to make the value go better. Ivan, talk to me.
I'm not on reverb.
Wow.
I'm in a hotel room. I don't have access to my other monitor. So the big question I've got is of all of the models of the K series, K2000 up to 2600, which is the one you really want?
I think a K2000 version 3, because the version 3's got sampling already built into it. You've got to have the sampling option. You must have it because as I learned this week, you can't pull samples or even do SMIDI dump or anything at all onto a regular, like the first K2000. I thought you could, but you can't. You've got to have the sampling option for it to actually import WAV files. And you can take I would be trying to get one that's got a USB update on it, drive update. But if you really wanted something good, yeah, sorry. They're $200. I can't believe that, man. If you really, I think that the 2500, I don't know how many different versions the 2500 went through. But yeah, if you get a K2000, it's got to be version 3. Yeah, and that was a software firmware update as well. But Brett, what are your thoughts? Oh, I'm sorry, Ivan, did you have any further questions on this?
Yeah, there's something called the Super K2000.
I've never heard of a Super K2000.
It shows up on Reverb.
Okay, well, someone can tell me what a Super K2000 is. While you're doing that, Brett, hit me with your rhythm stick.
All right, so sampling actually it's a little nuanced. So I've got a K2000 VP, which is a version 3 board if I remember right, but it also is the update to where it makes it more like a K2500, or it makes it compatible with the K2500. Sampling. You can't directly sample on the keyboard variants, but what I use with mine is SCSI predominantly because of I can hold more data. I do have the USB replacement for the floppy drive. I haven't installed it on this current board, and I haven't needed it. The SCSI is in my opinion a superior upgrade, if you will. It also allows you, with a simple cable, to connect to your PC, transfer stuff back and forth, which brings me to the sampling aspect. I can dump every sample I've got onto or every sample I want to dump onto that jazz drive, and I can import them all day long into the Kurzweil and fuck them up. And I actually proved this the other day. So while you cannot directly sample, you can indirectly sample as much as you want. And it literally just means that you have to take that sample into something like a PC or whatever, do your cuts and everything there, save it, and then when you get to the Kurzweil, you let the Kurzweil do what it does. And with that aspect of it, yeah, no, it can sample just fine, even without the sampling option.
Good to know, thank you. So the Super K2000, and remind me about looping. The Super K2000 is a VX, is a K2VX, which is a K2000 that is got everything on it. They've got an enhanced all sorts of shit. I still think the version 3 is fine. The version 3 is usually a lot cheaper. You can pull in the 2500 samples, and yeah, it's got a whole bunch of shit going on. I think if you wanted something that is absolutely dope nasty, get a 2500. I will also say that something the K2000 has, which I fucking love, is a pendulum looping. So you can, instead of like fucking around with a loop or doing a crossfade loop, which a lot of emulators can do, you can pendulum loop. And the pendulum looping on the K2000 is so delightful. Oh, it's lovely. And all the K2000s I'm seeing are all version 3. So that's 200 to $300. Jump in your car, get them off fucking Craigslist. And one thing is, when you test it with the headphones, make sure the volume knob is down, because when that volume knob is up, it'll deafen you. And because of the architecture of the fucking K2000, it will put out a lot of volume. So you could hurt yourself. Be careful. Razzie, I'm throwing it to you now.
Man, getting deep into the dumb stuff, but does it do real-time crossfade looping, or is it destructive? You bake it in, you hit crossfade of X milliseconds, and it just builds it for you.
I don't think it crossfades. I don't think it does crossfade sampling.
If you want to call it that, that's
crotch fading.
I,
Yeah,
I don't remember seeing it happen. I know that the S950 has a do a crossfade, but it performs it and bakes it so that it's still a non-crossfading loop, but it just
yeah,
built you handles from either side of the thing.
yeah.
Either side.
Same
of
with the
sample.
emulator, with the EMU stuff.
I don't know much about modern samplers now that I'm thinking about it. Like it's sort of I got off the train, as you might be able to tell from some of my questions about this thing. But it's an interesting idea about how much CPU power it takes just to do a crossfading loop of 24 voices. That's, I think, a pretty expensive math problem for computers to do, if I'm not mistaken, as I remember seeing a recent YouTube video about that topic.
Also, remember that the K2000 was released in the 90s, early 90s, and it's got a 33 megahertz processor on it. So if you're going to normalize and if you're going to do any of that stuff, do it on your computer. Do it all on the DAW, then send it over, because the K2000, it does pitch shifting and it does time stretching, and it's delightfully awful. Like, it's fantastically awful. But it is awful nonetheless. And it takes forever. Hit me, Resi.
Motorola 68,000 at 16 megahertz for the original.
16. Jesus. There you go. Okay, so wait, the Kurzweil does have crossfade? Rob says it's got crossfade. All right, there you go. I didn't know that. Like all the gear I own, I have merely touched the fucking surface. I might have to spend some of my spooky season funds on non-spooky stuff. Kurzweil is very spooky, adapt, manipulate, so don't worry about it. Just go with it. I don't mean to fucking hit gear acquisition syndrome, tra-la-la-la-la. Thanks for that smile, Ivan. I saw it. But the the thing about the Kurzweil is it's cheap. They're in abundance. And if you can't afford something amazing, get a Kurzweil, because it's fucking amazing. And I gotta tell you, these things need to be over $1,000. Every single one of them needs, because they are so fucking good. They're so good. And I said on the stream the other night, I got my first one in the early 90s for 5,200 Australian dollars, which was like 4,000 American. I got and it did so many albums on that machine. Dude, when I got that thing, it changed my fucking life. Then I got my second one in Chicago for $200. Then I got my third one in LA for free. And that's how they are. You might even be able to get one for a swap. Who knows? They're profound, but you've got to be a sound designer. You've got to love synthesizing. And I absolutely promise you will never run out of, Jesus Christ, that fucking bass. Okay, so do we want to keep chatting about the fucking K2000? Talk to me. All the sampler versions are $1,000 plus, not on Craigslist. Says Rob. Talk to me.
Little research shows that version 1 did not do crossfade looping. So if there's any confusion about whether it did or didn't, it could very well depend on version 2 point something seems to have added crossfade loops.
Okay, good to know.
Research.
Good to know.
And it is real time, not baked in.
Okay, dude, look at you.
Cool.
So get a version 3. Do we want to change the subject at this point? Because I think we've sold everybody on fucking K2000s. There was a question about ear training. And Rosie, can I throw this to you now? And I'm actually going to deal with he who shall not be named has just woken up, is stalking for food. So I'm going to deal with him.
Yeah.
Talk to me. The floor is yours.
I'll do the one that doesn't get me into the weeds nearly as much. And that is just sort of talking about where's my notes on the topic? Ear training for things like pitch, ear training for things like frequencies when you're EQing. The David Moulton Golden Ears course comes to mind. Ear training so you know what kind of chord progressions are going on things. Does this enter into anyone's practice, their own self-instruction, their own working toward creativity? And if so, what do you use? How does it go? What do you do? What do you like? What's the most useful for you? We'll start with Brett, because Brett has things to say about this.
For me, it's a matter of kind of a matter of habit now. So I got my start music from drums, snare drum, actually, concert snare. And so I was playing with a band. Much of the time when you're playing with a school band and such is listening to your bandmates do their thing. Like it or not, that trains your ear.
And I didn't even think to mention ear training on tempo, so you know what, like you can recognize 120 BPM off the bat or beat divisions.
Yeah, so and that's where things become really strong. I find that I can most easily recognize things that are like I can go from 60, 120, 30, and those things are just native. Everyone's used to a clock. And so once you understand what 120 beats a minute means, it scales very intuitively. The same sort of thing though is true about notes, because you have to listen to, and even if you get into rock and roll, you've got the tuning of each instrument to each other, and I can hear those beats really well. Part of that is because I deal with so much dissonant sounds, things that like you wouldn't like. I'll give you an example. I found a sample of this woman who was crying, and I sat there and painstakingly figured out what notes she was crying in. So then you have to kind of tune parts of that, or more in this case, it was chop out the parts of it that are in tune to use them as an instrument. So for me, like I said, it's become more of a matter of practice and more of a matter of intuition at this point. But it stems from that practice of listening to your bandmates, and which is key if you're going to play in any band. Listening to your bandmates, listening to how things are in tune, out of tune, what key they're in, and key is me, and then finding something that's complementary.
Was there a tool or technique or I don't know, regimen that you used for initially getting into discerning tempo? Like, okay, you got to do it with a metronome and increase by tens, or was there just immerse in it and you'll get there?
Most of it was immersion. However, where the metronome has come into play is forcing physical exercise
Yeah.
to play against. So, on the guitar, for example, if you want to play a scale at 120 beats a minute, well, you need to decide what note you're playing. Are you playing whole notes at 120 beats a minute? That's going to be okay. Or are you playing 30-second notes, and now you're really working your butt off.
I do like that idea of put it in your body, like not just in your mind, where there's things that take a certain amount of time and you can feel them, and there's parts of your body that move and it takes a certain effort and duration, and those are other cues to how I think that the kinesthetics of marching band is probably, like drum lines and stuff, a big deal for people who have that experience. We're going to send it back to Carl in a sec, but I think Alex wants to weigh in on this.
I do. It's really annoying because I used to be so much better in hearing out melodies. I think it atrophied because I didn't use it as much. And I think what helps you acquire it most is just trying to do it. Sitting in front of a song, in front of your instrument, maybe a guitar or a keyboard, and just try figure out the notes, trial and error.
I hate that drilling is the answer to anything, but sometimes like really isolating stuff and doing it a lot. And that's listen to what a minor second sounds like, listen to what a minor third sounds like, to understand the qualities of those intervals. Same with tempos and stuff. Anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I used to have an app for learning, for ear training, which gave you like, this is a minor third, this is a perfect fifth. And I try to do it, but it's really hard to keep going because
I
it's
have
so
one that I
boring.
like a lot called Sonofield. It's just pretty. I'll drop it into the chat. It's definitely an interval training, scale degree training without being tied
Yeah,
to
that's
key
what I wanted
signature.
to say. I used in a second one, which was better because it wasn't like concrete from this to this note, but like which degree of the scale is it? And for me, that's worked much better. Unfortunately, it was a free app, but they since went paid, and I'm a bit annoyed about that.
Some
Yeah.
software developers got to develop, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's called functional ear trading. I have no
Oh yeah,
idea
yeah, yeah.
right now, but
It's a little teal blue color background.
yes.
Yeah, I've got that too. It was really nice. I think that Sonofield, Sonofield, is sort of similar, but more vibey. Carl, do you want to jump in, or should we go to Phoenix first?
Thank you. And thanks for holding the fort. Phoenix, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
So I heard about all different synthesizers in this and other stuff, but how I got my music actually started was MTV Music Generator. And it was just so simple, and that's what made me, transition to Acid Pro, because I'm not the best at physically creating the stuff, but dragging and dropping was very appealing, and it kind of like got me into that like rhythm or groove itself, for where I could like mute this sound and just play the bass line, or I could mute the bass line and play just like a symphonic thing behind it. But I mean, this whole thing has been so expansive and so enlightening for me to understand music even better. But yeah, that's how I got my start, was just like drag, drop, and I'm like, hell, I'm making music. And that was like the early, I think 99 or whatever. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Razi.
One of the other ear trainable measurements that I might have overlooked, and I realized sort of one of the most effective studio tricks is being able to call out things in milliseconds accurately. And I've just, for whatever reason, gotten more reactions. So how did you know? It's similar to when somebody sees you behind a mixing console and like, how do you know what all those knobs do? And you say, that delay is 120 milliseconds. I've never been able to correlate it to beat divisions at a tempo because math, but being able to recognize when things are phasing against each other or flanging and it's 7 milliseconds to 12 milliseconds, it's kind of a fun thing. And it's not difficult to do once you've spent enough time looking at things that have those measurements on them and listening to the sound effects. And also maybe you've programmed your guitar delay to do dotted eighths for 30, 40 years, and you sort of get used to what 250 milliseconds sounds like.
Perfect. Thank you. Brett, tell me, what are you thinking?
I wanted to touch on something Austin was talking about there with like Acid Pro. I too used Acid Pro early on, but I used it in conjunction with Cakewalk. So what I would do is in Acid Pro, I would sit there and I'd let Acid Pro at that time do what it did well. Mind you, these are very early versions. And at the same time, before FL Studio was actually FL Studio, was Fruity Loops. And that would be another software tool that I would bring to the table and create those loops. And then I would flip them between Cakewalk, Acid Pro, and whatnot, and cut things up. In terms of listening and how that applies now, I still use these techniques. I still use them in FL Studio all the time. It's simply that the amount of tools and the amount of skills I have against those tools has also grown over time. And so, coming at this from the perspective of a drummer initially, A, B, C, D, E, F, G didn't mean much to me. However, every note value meant a whole lot to me. And that still is one of those fundamental drivers for me in terms of comfort zones. Let me get things into dotted eighths, get things into 32nds, 16ths, eighths, etc. Dotted values, what is downbeat, what is upbeat? That is a huge one. And of course, you've got your rests and the values of those. So long story short, all of that comes into play. And if you want it to sound good, you still have to do those basic skills kind of things of allowing your ear to understand the tunings between two different sounds be able to hear the beat. If if you imagine a sine wave for simplicity, you stick one slightly out of tune, whichever direction, and you put them and one in one ear and one in the other. You will hear a whoa 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 as those frequencies line up and then go out of alignment. And listening to so many musicians over time, since I was a little kid, that's one of those things I can pick out really fast, often faster than some of my friends who have just specialized on a single instrument like bass or guitar.
Thank you very much. Here are my thoughts. One, you can get note interval ear training videos from off YouTube and rip the audio, put them on your phone. So when you listen to something, and these things take like 3 minutes, it just comes in. And if you listen to one of those things every day, you will develop very good ears very quickly. You will be amazed how fast you pick it up. And you can say, I don't have a musical bone in my body. Nah. This is a neurological thing. You'll pick it up. Another thing that I think is important, for me anyway, is recognizing frequencies. And I'm out of shape on this one. You can also get little YouTube videos where they'll play a tone and they'll go 50 cycles. Then they'll play the next one, 75 cycles. Da 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 da. Just so you can get used to the sound. Because if you're hearing something and it's oh, what is that sound? Oh, it sounds like 2,500 cycles or whatever. It's a really handy thing to have. Especially if you ever do live audio, because if something starts feeding, yes, you can look at the fucking bouncy wiggly fucking lines, or you can just use your hearing and go, it's roughly in there. That's what I think anyway. And I also think that the 2600, the 2061 looks kind of boring. But it's 250 voices fucking polyphony. This thing's crazy. Tell me this stuff. And it's also got the real tone organs. It just looks so meh. It's got lots of sliders. Alex, stop looking at reverb.
I wasn't. For me personally, I've learned that just trying to play along with songs on your music streaming service or your CD is much more fun than doing those workouts, because it's much more engaging, and maybe you don't manage it at full speed, but at least on YouTube you can change the playback speed of videos, so it's much easier to find the right note in the right time. And also what I've become better at is just figuring out whether there are resonances. Like I walk into a room and I hear, there's like certain waves that, or certain frequencies that peak out and start to build up. It's never something I've wanted to learn actively, but it just happened, which is kind of fascinating.
That's a really good one that I appreciate too. Like being able to ballpark which octave it is, even if you don't have the perfect pitch version of it's 260, but it's between 300 and 400. And you hear the peak. That's super useful.
Strangely, I was at the LGBT Center the other night, and I've noticed that there is an area where you walk past it, there's a ring. And every now and then you find you walk past the wave area, and you like, it is a line on the floor. And I was thinking every single seat in this line can hear that fucking ring. And it was weird acoustics with room and air conditioning and humming of lighting equipment. But here you can hear it. And it wasn't because of the light, it was because of the physics of the room. Fascinating. Anyway, Razi, talk to me.
Because I know exactly how to have a lot of fun, my previous studio, I did have mapped out on the floor where the actual nulls were at what frequencies in the bass, written on a little piece of silver duct tape and Sharpie. There were definite silent areas. If you ran a sine wave into the room, there were, at my height, this distance from the speakers, no sound, totally dead. absolutely
Mm.
cancels. Put a little piece of tape down, write 20 hertz, move back, find the next dead spot at a different frequency, that kind of thing. So it's yeah, it's a real party.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Like, it's very interesting. It's just fascinating how, this gets into acoustic fucking fuckery, and I just couldn't be fucked. But anyway, someone else might be fucked. Maybe we want to talk about that. Does anybody else want to talk about this really interesting shit, or do we want to talk about keyboard? Yeah.
Um, just to wrap up the topic, the two things I dropped into the chat were about the Sonofield ear trainer, which is a nice one for interval training based on scale degrees rather than key signatures or anything, and the Dave Moulton Golden Ears course is one for more geared toward engineering, where you pitch train on frequency notches and frequency peaks for EQ and stuff like that, sort of focused on the drill of listening to those things. I don't know if the Golden Ears has been released in a cheaper version, but it used to be a very expensive CD collection and stuff like that. Anyway, they're both interesting things. The Molten one is particularly not fuzzy. It's scientific. It's rigorous.
This is great. Thank you. We had Alex wanted to talk briefly about keyboard bags. Alex?
Yes. I'm thinking about buying a keyboard bag again. My first keyboard carrying thing was a flight case, which was a really bad idea in the retrospective. But I didn't know any better back then. Yeah, and I think a soft bag or like something like that would have been a much better choice. And I wanted to ask the plenum, are there any things to look out for with keyboard bags? Which ones are good? Maybe not under certain price ranges, brands, I don't know, features.
Razi, fill us with your logic.
Man, I wish I had some. It's a shame that you already wrote off hard flight cases, because I have some ATS cases that you could use as furniture if you wanted, like actual ATS brand flight cases with the battleship corners and butterfly latches and stuff. And I've refoamed them to fit different keyboards from time to time. I just used to use some sort of variety of the more lightweight carpeted hard cases and actual flight style cases. Always buying them used. Never, I don't think I've bought more than two new off the shelf rack style, flight cases in my life. They're very expensive, and the discount is pretty good, or can be very good if you get them used. Or if you had asked about guitars, I have a couple of guitar bags that I've switched to rather than hard shell cases for those things, that I just look for double stitching and brand name zippers, and see if there's any tears in the fabric, and I guess if it's on the showroom floor and it has tears in it, that's a different discussion. But there's the sort of workmanship kind of tells that if the stitches are finished nicely and the zippers are name brands and the Fastex connectors say Fastex on them instead of something that you don't recognize, there are good signs. And I don't know if that correlates strongly with any of the famous brands like Gator or whatever that make these things. But I do know I've had quite a variety of things where the zipper is what goes, very, very few things it's been anything other than the zipper becoming derailed and needing to be restitched and stuff like that. So maybe look at the zippers as the sort of first line of inspection.
And wheels. Thank you, Resi. Zippers go first, but wheels. Never underestimate wheels. Yeah. That's all I got. If you're putting it on a plane, get something really hardcore, because if it goes on a plane, it's going to get crushed. God, I hate planes. I hate traveling. I hate everything. Why can't we just exist with power of thought? Yet, ironically, we do. And when I say ironic, I mean as in Alanis. Does anybody else want to jump in on this? Alex, do you have any further questions on keyboard cases?
No, I think all my questions have been asked, and I understand if that's not something everyone has like super many opinions on.
I just get them cheap because I'm cheap and I never use them.
And that's the
And
thing. Like sometimes you can buy 5 cheap ones for your lifetime, and it's still less expensive than the more expensive one that you might have optioned. You know, like it's a tough call sometimes.
um, I have a really interesting, weird question here about connecting things wrong. Connecting things wrong. Razi, what does that mean?
I don't know. We've kind of brought this up, I think, over the years, and it's like finding stuff that you can plug in the wrong way, and finding things that you can connect that aren't supposed to be compatible. Yes.
I've got one.
Okay.
So, clock dividers are, or 555 chip is, so there's a thing you can get on a modular synth, and it's very, very cheap, and you stick a pulse into it, like a BPM trigger timing clock pulse, and it will divide it by 2. And each of the different pins out of it, it'll divide that one by 2, that one by 4, that one by 8, that one by 16. And they're designed to half tempos of stuff. Because in modular world, apparently that's what everybody wants all the time. Here's something fantastic, is that if you put a tone into that, it will also, it's called a clock divider. But if you put an actual like 440 tone into it, it will spit out 220. So if you play stuff into an analog clock divider, it will work as an octave divider as well. And what's great fun? Put sound into it. So put shit from a sampler into it, or a drum loop, an actual audio drum loop, and you start getting some very horrifically fucked up shit. Really weirdly cut up, mashed shit. And this is all analog circuitry, so they can deal with that stuff, and it's good fun. And they're super cheap. So it's instant, I want to hurt this sound very badly. Toils and vocals. Vocals can come out sounding, what the fuck? There you go. Does anybody else have a thing, a fuckery that they like to do?
Mm.
Is
Looking up
everybody
the,
still, I'm sorry?
I'm just looking up the 555 chip to see what else you can do with one.
They can do everything with a 555. They can even make coffee.
I like that the chatbot answer is a plain 555 can't reliably divide an audio rate signal, which is like, good.
Perfect. And they're passive. I think they're passive. So there's all of these really fun bits and pieces. I've always felt like, they've got just to have a single line of modular stuff that's specifically for fuckery. Good stuff. Alex, I want you to make my brain explode with joy.
Oh no, I
Oh
think
yeah.
also is feedback, especially through things that are digital and does have a bit of delay. So it builds up differently from an analog feedback path, which is like instant. And if it goes to D2As, it usually has like some time where it swells up, and you can maybe manipulate the amount that goes into the feedback, so it's like evolving. I like to do that.
Mm. And the wonderful thing about feedback is it also hits frequencies you're not expecting. Lovely. Brett, what are your thoughts?
All right, hooking things up wrong. My most abused piece of equipment of all time. It's not clean in any way, shape, or form. It mangles the hell out of everything. And for some reason, that's really useful for industrial. Now it does take. I'm not going to kid you. It takes work to clean up anything to actually make it useful. It's great for actually making samples, I would say, more than I would say performances. unless you actually use it for its intended purpose, but that's not the conversation. To that regard, then the thing I mostly use it for is, or have mostly used it for, this was actually my earliest vocal effects box. And yeah, I would sit there and use the pedal as a volume control to take it from brutally distorted to absolutely unrecognizable. And when you hit that absolutely unrecognizable, I highly recommend that if you're going to do this, you go through headphones, because otherwise you're going to be in feedback squeal city, which, to Alex's point, can also be cool, because it is still all those other effects. So you can right there on the fly manipulate it both with your voice and also by mic placement. More to the speaker, less to the speaker. Also, to Rezzy's point, knowing where your dead zones in your studio is at that point becomes really helpful when you're going to use stuff the way it's not intended. And I've even heard about people running video through distortion pedals, and I think that's among the most interesting uses I've heard to date.
Thank you. I think Mike does that. Mike the Liar from Video Punks. He changes the impedance or something, something, something. It's very interesting how you go through this period when you're young, because this also gets into the subject of sampling shit that isn't supposed to be used as something amazing, but it ends up being amazing. Like the most amazing bass line I've ever heard was somebody banging a piece of metal or something, and right there it had no pitch, but 3 octaves lower, it was this beautiful sound. It's really fascinating how when you're young and foolish, you do all this stuff and try all this stuff, and the feeling of it is so wonderfully liberating. The actual sonic puree of it is perhaps, how do I say this politely? In my case, anyway, unusable noise. Like there's cool noise and there's unusable noise. And I think where those two begin and end is depends on how far a stick you have up your ass. In my case, I unfortunately have a real sonic stick up my ass. No, it's just really interesting that energy when you are young is the sort of energy you need right now. That when you can go back and go, I don't care if this is going to be puree, this is going to be inspiring. And that feeling of freedom, oh, that's the best fucking drug there is. Yeah, that's a really wonderful thing. So yeah, thank you. And from that comes so many different things. Razzie, I want to hear your voice.
That was exactly where I hoped it could come around to, like things that somebody has done that brought inspiration into the process. And I know you're talking about that as in the past tense, like that is part of the challenge right now, is that once you've learned the right way to do so many things, once you've got strong correlation and confidence about what mic preamps are supposed to be connected to XLRs and what guitar impedance, high impedance plugs are supposed to be plugged into guitars, you do stop fucking around to some extent. I mean, you've got to. You're like, I learned this, I do this, I know what's connected to what, I know what things are matched for levels, and you lose that surprise and delight and crazy coincidences. And I, right now, like I can think of a couple of things, and it's all 20 years ago, the last time I plugged something wrong into the wrong thing. And I did a experiment of plugging the Simmons pads directly in as audio and trying to make drums come out, like by synthesizing and distorting and shaping the little wood planks that come out. I've certainly even like more recently brought the induction probe and put it near things that have electrical EMF and heard what kinds of sounds are coming out of things. But those aren't recent, and they're not as fun. So hopefully, like maybe somebody else has got yes, I remember 30 years ago when I plugged something in and it fucked something up and it broke the thing, but it broke it permanently and I kept using it, Like, is there anything else that comes to mind in your distant memories or even recent ones where you just overlooked it and didn't bother doing it, but should have?
Thank you. Here we go. Alex, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I hope this fits the bill. I have this kick drum sample, which was the first drum I synthesized and sampled. And it's really hard clipping, but it adds to the sound. And I'm really glad it clips. Also, it doesn't begin at a zero crossing, but like at a um, full amplitude sample. So it's like, and the other thing is just overdriving my mixing desk, which was used from the company that shall be named, not be named. And the other thing is I used to, I didn't know anything about mixing, but I had this cracked copy of Fruity Loops. And because I wanted a more aggressive sound, I didn't know how to do it. I just pushed the volume, and because it was version 3 and not version 7 or something, the audio engine was clipping internally, and it was a really cool sound. And when I got a legit copy and upgraded, I was really disappointed that all my hard-earned harshness disappeared into 32-bit floating point audio engine. Yeah.
Thank you, but doesn't that just fucking sum it up? Firstly, D, thank you for saying 14-year-old in a punk band or teenager in a punk band or whatever you said. That's what we're after. You will always be looking for that crazy experimentation and also the unshowable art disasters. That's the fucking best. Isn't it crazy how that I think if I went to some art museum full of a bunch of crusty ferals with a whole bunch of unshowable art disasters, I would come out so inspired. I would come out going, oh my fucking, I would probably be buying art. Not that I can buy art, but I would go, oh my God, think about this. Like this is really curious. And Alex, when you say going to 32-bit float, and that's just when I fell asleep, not because of what you said, it's because of, isn't that so fucking typical? Is that I don't want nice shit. I really want it's at the edge of madness. Like really, it is at the edge of that fucking things falling apart sound great, but one thing, it's always the smell. It's always that dirty, dusty, moldy smell, or the smell of burnt capacitors. It's the most exciting fucking thing. And something happens in your mind. It just goes like a flower. Razi, talk to me.
I pulled out. I was remixing something for posterity and utilitarian purposes that was probably 30 years old, and there's a distortion loop in there that was so broken up and so idiosyncratic that I don't like. I wanted it. I needed that to sound that way, but I didn't have the original, and I couldn't recreate it. I couldn't. It was the only element that was missing from this thing to make the version that I needed to make, non-vocal version, and absolutely couldn't loop it. I couldn't get it to happen. I couldn't get the sort of randomness to come back together the way that the original did. And those are the sort of moments that like are priceless. Like that's on that song, and I'm the person that made it. I cannot make it happen again. So the magic is encapsulated in that moment, and the version that I had to redo doesn't do it. I don't know if it's better or worse 10 years from now when I listen to it, but it probably doesn't have the same whatever in the sequence that the original piece had. And a second thing that came to mind that is also far in the past, but a real moment of this isn't supposed to work this way. On the ARP Omni, at least, it's got a single envelope generator, but two different sounds. So you can do a keyboard split for bass and string pad. You hold down a chord on the string pad, you play the bass notes, it'll re-trigger the envelope on the string pad. So if you're playing 16ths or 8ths and holding down quarters or whole notes or something on the top, you can get a neat gated triggering sound as you're playing, maybe do this on the bass and hold the chords on there. And that's another thing that isn't really reproducible in a lot of other ways. It's unique to that, and it isn't necessarily an intentional design feature of what it's supposed to do. But moment made the song. Like I wrote the whole song based on that feature of it happening.
That's a great moment. Thank you. Brett, I want you to moment all over my face.
No, you don't. Anyway. um, so this is a hack I used to do, and it's not exactly using a tool the wrong way, but at the same time, it kind of is. Do y'all remember the little FM transmitters that you would hook up to like your tape decks and such so that you could play them in the car? Well, I used to use those purposefully in the studio to give myself a half generation of loss. So you play it to a radio and record it from there to dump back into the DAW. And that transmission process, you're not going through a full generation it's not like sitting there taking a tape and recording to another tape, because you do have the broadcast element. But it was a neat way to get some of those effects where it kind of can sound a little bit more distant, in the mix. Anyway, I was looking at them. They seem to still have them, but they are more USB integrated now. At the same time, yeah, that's just, I thought it was useful.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I see your hand, Rosie, and thank you, Brett. It's really amazing how the art of fucking around with music was that, and I mean really, like this week I was doing something with Hack, with Wicked Stories, and I dragged something out and clicked on some spokes and springs and shit and recorded, and okay, I'm going to use that in the in the soundtrack somehow. But is this a generational thing? Is this because we spent our childhood piss fighting around the street with our BMX bikes, and playing football or soccer or baseball or cricket? And maybe that's a side. And what I'm trying to get at is, because we went through these steps of actually getting metal and wooden splinters in our fingers are we more tenacious? Because when I was a kid, when I started making music was a painful fucking pain in the ass. It had all these processes and all of these other things. And I've just taken that with me, that I think that is why I have a certain, my thing is tenacity. I get shit done because I'm a tenacious motherfucker, because of how I train myself to work. And I don't know why. I don't know what it is. Like, if all else fails, go get a spring and stick it on a piece of wood and bang it or something. I don't know. Rezi, help me. I'm not making any
I don't
sense.
want to go too far away from that, but I did also want to follow up on exactly what Brett was talking about. I'll come back to what you're saying, Carl, in a second. My dude, you just reminded me, about 6 months ago or a year ago, I bought an FM transmitter PCB and components from AliExpress to assemble into a project case to make into a guitar pedal style thing. I never built it. Thank you for reminding me. There's my answer. I've got it solved. It's in a drawer over there. Soldering irons on the shelf. I'll just take it out. And this is exactly the kind of thing that it's a little bit sad to have forgotten that. And Carl, as you're saying, the tenacity and interest in rolling up your sleeves and doing something physical to make your music, definitely there are shortcuts, man. When you just fire up your DAW and have presets and, a template and plugins that recall their state, it's a very different experience. The little micro motions of moving your pointer versus having to walk over to the shelf and pull out a spring, coil, soldering iron, piezo pickup, solder it onto a plug in. It's a different range of convenience and discipline and stuff. I don't know where it leads me to, but that laziness versus some sort of tenacity and pushing through it. There's an interesting.
So yes, thank you. It's interesting that so there's a culture in Australia called Mitre 11. So there's in Australia it's called Mitre 10, and Mitre 10 is the nickname for Home Depot, and Mitre 11 is the side streets, is the back streets, is the alleys between each major street, or they also call it IKEA lane. And you see in Australia, if you're done with a piece of furniture, you leave it out the front of your house or you put it in the lane. And it's not trashed, it's not beaten up. Trash, beaten up shit goes in the junk. This is stuff that's still usable, but instead of it going into landfill, and it's this Australian-wide thing. Man, Josie looks so pissed. It's this Australian-wide thing where you and I remember, and I've heard so many people say this, half the furniture in their house was, they get it on IKEA lane. When I used to live in the Rock House in Sydney, it was all from there. And when we left, it was so easy because everything just went back on the street. So not only is it that, but it's also bits of acoustic guitar and all sorts of bits and bobs and bits and pieces. But somebody's going to leave a table out there, this big, big, beautiful wooden table that's a bit beaten up, and you probably, and it's like, I am going to use that as an acoustic workspace. I'm going to be drilling shit into that. I'm going to be putting strings, etc., over this thing, and I'm going to start using it as an instrument. And the whole joy of walking around, like I had a bag, a tote bag specifically for picking up springs, bits of metal, and shit like that I found on the side of the road. And I don't blame my location for that. I blame myself that I've lost that joy of putting stuff on a table and look, we're talking about putting things on tables again and actually creating an instrument by junk that you found on the side of the road. For the record, I was born in 81. Good on you. Early digital. Yep. That's excellent. Thanks, D. Brett, I see your hand.
Yeah, so I mean, I imagine there is something that adds to tenacity. My own experiences, when I was a kid, I was in the woods. There was nothing nearby. So that's one. It was kind of good that I was into drums because literally anything you could hit was an instrument. But that's also where it became, due to the lack of being able to get to things that make noise properly, the whole world had to become, a soundboard of sorts. And I remember doing stupid stuff like playing a ceiling fan. And I would sit there and I would take a drumstick and I would just, let the ceiling fan do what it was doing. But I would just take the drumstick and just touch it to the fan blades as they were going by and use the to create rhythms. And then, the other part of that became, like I mentioned, the radio. And by the way, Raziel, I want your parts list. But the reason radio came up was I didn't have a dual cassette player. I had early computers, and these had your standard silver cassette recorder that had the counter on it, and you would put in tapes and record your programs to them. And so if I wanted to record a friend's tape, for example, I would have to take that and I would build like a little pillow fort for my recorder. And then I would play theirs in that pillow fort, the whole thing to minimize outside noise. With it came all, and this is what I later learned what it was called, but it came with that whole generation loss that I'm talking about. And so my recordings always had more noise and more distortion, and they were always crunchier. And when I throw them in my car, they were what they were. But I would also do things like take, like I remember like I wanted a Sounds of War, for example, cassette. And so I took bits of clips from like, I want to say Def Leppard, Metallica, where they had these little snippets and other records I don't even remember now. And I built this whole soundscape just doing it that way. And this later became the earliest recording techniques for Maddox, which was my first band. And we literally would then plan for how much, what things we wanted to be the most distorted based on the equipment we had. And yeah, so there's, I don't know if it made me more tenacious or if tenacity was something that was just part of me and was just that you're not going to stop me from doing what I want to do. But there's definitely an element to it.
Thank you. It's very interesting how I think tenacity and ferocity are closely related. And I think if you build up tenacity, you can also build up ferociousness. And ferociousness is a very handy ally to have in music and art. Okay, so firstly, funny you mentioned the ceiling fan because only the other day I stuck a drumstick in the ceiling fan. And what's great about it is because it's got 5 prongs on it, it's a 5 unit, a 5 note cycle. And as you move the drumstick down, the sound changes drastically. And then if it's hitting the tip or if it's scraping it, it's really interesting. I think whoever lived around me did not appreciate it, but hey, I'm going to actually record this. By the way, just call it Noin Barton, and if you call it Noin Barton, people will think you're very cool. I can't say it either. I suck. Secondly, yeah, there's just so much fun stuff to be done with actual mechanical elements. They do things that you don't expect, and it's so fun. And then when you start miking this stuff up and really heavily compressing it, and then you're going to say, well, I'm going to sample that and play it 3 octaves lower. And you start getting and in that clock you may have recorded, there was another ticking thing that was adding this extra fucking, what is that? I don't know. Um, uh, Bam. So anyway, that's what I got. We could talk about killing this stream. It's been really, although there is one more thing I'll say, and that is that recently, I can't remember what it was, but it was like a metronome, but it was much bigger. And I saw it and I went, I'm going to record that. And I found that if you stuck the stick in the middle, it would go equal timing, tick, 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 tick. But if you stuck your stick over here, it would go tick, 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 tick. And the more you moved it over, the more groove it got. It's really fucking interesting. Um, and what was interesting is that as you moved it, so you could record the thing and move it, and this really interesting groove would start happening, and then it would come back to the center. Shit like that you can't plan for.
Makes me
Um,
wonder if you could use more than one stick.
you could use more than one stick. Which reminds me of my favorite Australian joke ever, but we just gave it up. So it's the point. I'm not even going to say it. What do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back? A stick. By the way, if you're on my socials, I really apologize. There's a whole bunch of magpie attacks because it's magpie season. And it's really fantastic. Dude, the birds are this big. Like they're over a foot long. They're huge fucking birds. And they come in for your face. Research magpie swooping. It's insane. And I was talking to Dad last night. So magpies are laying their eggs now because it's spring in Australia, and they become extremely territorial. And if they know you, they won't fuck with you. But if they don't know you and they're on your turf, and that can be within 300 feet of their nest, they will go Burko on you and they will draw blood. They will fucking draw blood. Oh, dude, when I was in school, I had friends who got stitches from them and everything. You can't kill them and harm them because they're a natural Australian species. Can't hurt them, but they can beat the fuck out of you. I'm okay with that. They're the most beautiful bird. And they've got a beautiful call. And pairs, they mate for life. And pairs, same with currawongs, who are related to magpies, but currawongs are much more nice. They don't swoop. Magpies, when they mate, they stay together and they have a song. So these two birds will have the same song that they will sing, finish the little song, goes for like 20 seconds, stop, then they sing it again, and it's the same song. Then Up the road a bit, there's another Magpie couple, and they've got their own song. And it's like he sings, she sings, he sings, he sings, she sings, she sings, she sings, like this. It's this beautiful interplay. Magpie song. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever heard. Oh my God, giant magpies. Yeah, they're huge and they'll fuck you up. No, they're more ferocious than Canadian geese. These guys are bastards. Just watch some videos and they're endlessly entertaining. Rosie, talk to me.
This week I learned that the melody from Kookaburra in the Old Gum Tree was quoted in the flute part of Down Under by Men at Work. And
Yes, it is.
the rights holder kind of fucked them and
Oh,
sued them and kind of wrecked the flautist's life for having quoted that because it wasn't in the demo.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a little bit sad in the end there, but little joining in on the Aussie there.
There you go. So this has been Art of Rock. Thank you for joining us. And we're gonna call it so. Every week it's here. And thanks for these chats have been very funny. I really appreciate them. There on Angelspit's bloody Twitch, go like it and that shit. And then Angelspit's fucking YouTube, like that shit too. This is Angelspit's Patreon. It's all about Angelspit's Patreon. It's not really. But you can jump on that for free as well. And I've got my hand up. Always got my fucking hand up. Or for as little as $3 a month. I do appreciate any help you want to give. May May's new album is coming out. We're kickstarting it now. I co-produced it. May May's such a good songwriter, and the lyrics are fucking great. And there's a song on there called Rose of Jericho, which I think is one of the favorite songs I've heard in a long time. Bloody good album. So please check that out. Angelspit's new album is on Bandcamp. Go get some of that shit too. There's a whole bunch of music that you need to know about on the Industrial Incisions playlist. I don't know. As soon as I saw Rob there, I went all Australian. Go fucking get some new music. Wednesday night is the next time this crew of motley beasts will be together, getting drunk, watching Vulture Culture talk about synthesizers. I'm wearing a Vulture Culture shirt. You should too. We should be drinking coffee instead of alcohol here. If you want to be a part of Angelspit's Discord, it's there. I think it works. I don't know how Discord works. Fuck everything. It's too hard. Why have I got so Australian? Isn't that funny? Razi, thank you so much for being the amazing co-hosting machine.
And thank you. I wouldn't miss it unless I was trapped under something really heavy, you cunt.
Oh, good boy. I'm so proud of you. If you want to do something about this beautiful democracy called America, join Indivisible. It will do miracles for you. Gee, I hope that's linking to the right place. If it's not, will somebody please fucking tell me? And also, alternative US national parks is another place that is beginning to become active in aiding the American democratic situation. And if you're using too much internet, fucking noise indeed. Go fucking join the media. Why is my accent out? A big shout out to everybody who is on this fantastic shit show today. Go listen to their music too. And please remember the GoFundMe for Drake's family. This is important. We're gonna rate to MTV TV and get some of Drake's music. We're on MTV TV. We're chuffing on over there now. So Diana, if you could start the magical raid. Start the magical raid to MTV TV. MTV TV, the magical raid. Oh. When it's rated, will you tell me? Or I'll just keep singing.
It is rated.
All right. On the count of 3. Hold on. I can do this. I believe myself. Can everybody start